Hi creators, it's Melissa from Melissa's Creations, and today I have this adorable cased card for you. This is from Judy May of judymay.typepad.com, and she is from Australia. I changed a few things up about my card from her version so that I could use what I had on hand, but I just thought that was super cute. And the metallic hills up here mixed with some gold embossing just really stood out to me. So let's go ahead and make this card today. This is one of the stamp sets I'm using today, which could be purchased in a bundle with the Framelits. This sentiment here from Snowflake Sentiments, "May the miracle of Christmas fill your heart with joy," is the one we're going to use on our card today. We're also using some of our Stitched Shapes Framelits dies. I'm using the largest square and the second largest oval. And I'm using the Carols of Christmas bundle. So from the stamp set, we are using these stars to heat emboss our background. And from the card front builder Thinlits dies that come in a bundle with this stamp set, we are using the two different trees. All right, so to get started, we need a few scraps of paper. I have some Tranquil Tide cardstock, basic black cardstock. I have some of the Dazzling Diamonds as well as some gold Glimmer paper. I have a silver foil sheet. And then, of course, our Whisper white for our card base and some of our accent pieces. So I'm going to start by cutting our card base. I'm going to bring in my Stampin' trimmer, and I'm taking this 8.5 by 11 inch sheet of cardstock, and the first cut I'm going to do is at 5.5 on the long edge. And then I'm going to rotate and score that in the middle at 4 1/4 to get my card base. And to get my card front, I am going to cut this piece to measure 4 by 5 1/4. And finally, we need a small piece for our sentiment down here. So I am going to cut a piece that is 1 inch by 2.5 inches. Now we want to trim down a piece of our gold Glimmer paper. So I am going to cut this at 2 3/4 by 1 1/4. I'm going to be cutting some ovals out of the rest of this, so I'll set this aside for a moment. Out of your basic black scrap, this piece measures about 2.5 inches wide, and that's really all that you need. You don't need to fill the entire square here. So I am just going to trim it down. I'm going to kind of eyeball it, and I want a little bit of space on either side so I have some room to play. So I want to cut it about right here. So let's say 3 1/2. And in case you want to cut your own in advance, that's 3 1/2 by 2 1/2. Okay, I'll be cutting my ovals out now. So this is, like I said, the second largest Stitched Shape Framelit in the ovals. And I'm going to cut one of those out. And I'm also going to cut one out of the same size from the gold and the silver foil. A tip when you're cutting out on the silver foil and your plates look just like mine, I don't want this plate to touch any of the foil that it doesn't need to. So I'm going to actually slide my plate in first so that it just covers where my framelit sits, and then I'm going to slide that whole thing through and cut that. And then once I hear that click, I'm going to take my top plate off, slip it back through, and that way the rest of my foil stays nice and shiny. All right, now let's get those trees cut out. And I just need 5 trees, so I'm just gonna cut a few out with this guy. And I like to cut mine out in the middle of this sheet so that I can still use it as a frame on another card. All right, so the last step with our big shot is to cut our square framelit from the top Whisper White mat. So I'm just lining it up so I have an even amount of space on these sides and that I get it as straight as I can. So let's go ahead and run that through. And you can definitely save this square for another project. All right, we're gonna get ready to do some heat embossing. So I have my small piece of Whisper White that I'm going to stamp my sentiment on, as well as my piece of basic black cardstock. I'm using the embossing buddy to get the static off of these pieces so that when I go to dump my powder on, it doesn't stick in the areas that don't have the Versamark. So I have my gold embossing powder and I have my 2 stamps mounted. I'm gonna go ahead and dip those into my Versamark. And the same with the stars. Now with these stars on the background, you want to try and angle them in different positions along the top edge so that it doesn't feel too uniform. You want it to be kind of random. All right, now we're going to take that gold embossing powder and we're just going to lightly dump a generous layer on those pieces. And don't worry, we're not wasting any. It's going to go back into the tub in a moment. So dump it off, flick a little bit of the excess, and that's what we have left. Do the same with the white piece. And just kind of wipe away the extra bits that are left over. So cute. All right, carefully set those aside. Get your embossing powder back in the tub, and I'm just using a piece of the cardboard that comes with our DSP, our designer series paper, to dump that back into my tub. So now with our heat tool, I am going to get those embossing. All right, now we can start assembling our card. So the first thing I'm going to do is start with my black background. And I want my mat handy so that I can put it over periodically and see how I'm doing. So kind of getting, you know, a good placement about there-ish. All right, so I am going to start with my gold in the background. Now you don't need this entire oval. If you would like, you can cut it on kind of almost a diagonal so that you can use another portion of it on another card. So for this one, I want this up kind of at the top. So I'm gonna put it about right there, okay? And we're going to be using our fast fuse because that works wonders with the glimmer paper. So let's stick this guy right about there. All right, and then I'm going to take my Dazzling Diamonds glimmer paper and I'm going to angle that down here. Let's see. How do I, you know, just let's do it this direction. And then finally, we're going to take that silver foil and cover up the last bit right there. So then just kind of get your placement and see how that all works. Don't worry about the sides here. We're going to trim those off later. All right, so now we're going to place our trees. So let's see. I think I can leave that one together. And I'm just going to set them down for a moment just to kind of see how I like the placement. I'm going to cut the top of this guy off. And I want him to go in the background, so I'm going to tuck him back under here. So now that I have that rough placement, I can go ahead and glue these all down. Right there looks pretty good. So I'm going to hold it down and flip it over. I'm dragging it off the edge of my desk so I can keep as much of that placement as possible. And I'm just going to use some regular old Scotch tape to keep it in place. Once I get the one down, I can turn it back around and say, yep, that looks pretty good. So then I'll tape the top. And now I can trim off the edges. Just like that. All right, to finish off our card, I'm going to adhere my sentiment to my gold glimmer paper and fast fuse for that as well, right in the middle. I'm going to put that directly down onto my card front, and that is going to go right down here towards the bottom. I am going to use some of our gorgeous metallic edge ribbon. This is the gold metallic edge, and I am going to slip a small bit of fast fuse on one edge. Going to get my placement, which is right in between our sentiment and our feature on our card, and then snip off the other side. Bit more fast fuse, and then just simply wrap him around. There's our strip, and now I'm going to tie my bow. So the best way that I can get a beautiful bow is to do 2 bunny ears and then use those, tie them in a knot, and then just kind of let the ribbon do its thing, flip it around and pull on one ribbon. I'm pulling on this right here to kind of get that flat knot. And then you can kind of wiggle it around and adjust it as needed. And that side looks gorgeous, so I'm going to use that side. And then I'm going to trim the tails with my ribbon snips. All right, so grab out some dimensionals and some mini glue dots. We're going to adhere the bow with mini glue dots. And now we're going to use our dimensionals to pop it up, and you guessed it, give it some dimension Okay, grab your card base. Go ahead and fold it in half. Now, if you have this problem as well, sometimes you get kind of like a raised edge on the edge of your card when you're using your trimmer. Simply take your bone folder and flatten out that edge, and it looks like it never even happened. So, little tip for you guys. So, crease that fold, and then bring in your masterpiece. Pop it right up on that. And there it is, a gorgeous, gorgeous Christmas card ready to go. Now I think I'm going to leave this one plain. I did put some of our gold metallic shapes on there, but I think I like it clean as well. So that's kind of personal preference. Maybe you want to spruce it up with some rhinestones. That would be gorgeous also. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this card. If you did, give the video a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to leave me a comment. You can follow me on my website at melissascreations.com and like me on Facebook at facebook.com/mcreations. I want to thank Judy May for the inspiration on this card that I cased for this video. If you have any questions or you need to get some supplies, head over to my shop and shop to your heart's content. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye. Alright, so the last step with the Big Shot is to cut our square out of our mat for the top. So I'm going to line up son of a gun. Ugh.